Sherlock Holmes versus John Wick. The morning fog clung to Baker Street as Sherlock Holmes, the great detective, sat in his armchair, fingers steepled in thought. Dr. Watson, his loyal companion, was reading the newspaper when a sharp knock interrupted their quiet morning. "Come in," Holmes called, his voice calm but curious. A nervous man entered, his eyes darting about the room. He was impeccably dressed, but his trembling hands betrayed his unease. "Mr. Holmes," the man began, "my name is Victor Tarasov. I require your services. I am being hunted." Holmes raised an eyebrow. "Hunted? By whom?" Victor hesitated before whispering, "John Wick." The name hung in the air like a thunderclap. Watson frowned. "The assassin? I've heard rumors about him. A man who single-handedly dismantled entire criminal organizations." "Indeed," Holmes said, his eyes narrowing. "Mr. Wick is a name spoken in hushed tones across the criminal underworld. Why, Mr. Tarasov, is he after you?" Victor swallowed hard. I wronged him. My family took something precious from him. A dog. And he won't stop until he has his revenge." Holmes stood abruptly, his mind already racing. "Watson, fetch my coat. This promises to be an intriguing case." The hunt begins. Holmes and Watson began their investigation by tracing Wick's movements. Holmes deduced that Wick was staying in London, likely at a place that catered to individuals of his profession. "The Continental," Holmes said, as they stood outside an unassuming yet elegant hotel. "A sanctuary for assassins. Wick will be here, but we must tread carefully." Inside, the air was thick with tension. Men and women in tailored suits lounged in the lobby, their eyes cold and calculating. Holmes approached the concierge. "We seek Mr. Wick," he said bluntly. The concierge, unflinching, replied, "Mr. Wick does not wish to be disturbed." Holmes leaned closer, his voice a low whisper. "Tell him Sherlock Holmes is investigating him. That should pique his interest." Minutes later, they were led to a private lounge where John Wick awaited. He was dressed in his signature black suit, his piercing eyes scanning Holmes and Watson with quiet intensity. "Mr. Wicks," Holmes began, "I am here to understand your motives and perhaps persuade you to end your pursuit of Mr. Tarasov." Wick's expression hardened. "Do you know what he took from me?" Holmes nodded. "A dog. But I suspect it was more than that, a symbol of your late wife's love, a final gift." Wick's jaw tightened. "Then you understand why I can't stop." Holmes studied him for a moment. "I do, but vengeance often consumes the avenger. Tell me, Mr. Wick, what will you have left once this is over?" A dangerous game. Holmes and Wick's conversation was interrupted by a sudden commotion. A group of armed men stormed into the lounge, weapons drawn. "Victor Tarasov sends his regards," their leader sneered. Wick reacted instantly, disarming the first attacker with brutal efficiency. Holmes and Watson ducked behind a table as chaos erupted. Wick moved like a force of nature, his every action precise and deadly. When the dust settled, the attackers lay incapacitated. Wick turned to Holmes, his face calm but his voice firm. "Stay out of my way." "On the contrary," Holmes said, standing, "I believe I can help you." The final confrontation. Holmes devised a plan to bring Victor Tarasov to justice while sparing Wick from further bloodshed. He sent a message to Tarasov, luring him to an abandoned warehouse under the pretense of protection. When Tarasov arrived, he found Holmes, Watson, and Wick waiting. "Mr. Tarasov," Holmes said, "you have two choices: surrender to the authorities and face justice, or face Mr. Wick." Victor panicked, pulling a gun. But Wick was faster. In a blur, he disarmed Tarasov and pinned him to the ground. Holmes stepped forward. "Mr. Wick, you've proven your point. Let the law handle him from here." For a moment, Wick hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, he released Tarasov. "Consider this mercy," he said quietly, "a new respect." As the authorities arrived to take Tarasov into custody, Wick turned to Holmes. "You're not what I expected," Wick admitted. Holmes smiled faintly. "Nor are you, Mr. Wick. For a man of violence, you possess a surprising sense of restraint." Wick nodded. "Perhaps I still have a long way to go." As Wick disappeared into the night, Holmes and Watson returned to Baker Street. Do you think he'll ever find peace? Watson asked. Holmes stared out the window. Perhaps not, but for now he has shown that even in the darkest of souls there remains a spark of humanity. And with that, the great detective turns his mind to the next mystery, leaving behind the shadow of John Wick.